Howdy and welcome to the Tom Hern Show here at Te Puna Creative Hub, where we are getting creative and we are talking creative. Creativity, filmmaking, directing, screenwriting, acting, you name it, it's all happening here. So lock in, check it out, we're about to have a yarn. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Tom Hern Pod being recorded today here at the Te Puna Creative Hub. On today's episode, I have two men that I've recently connected with and become friends with. They're both businessmen, entrepreneurs, very smart, very creative, and they've both succeeded in other sectors before being drawn into the beautiful screen industry, which is how they came into my universe. So let's get to it. Let's meet JC and Ahmed. Ahmed, JC, awesome to have you guys here. Here we are. We're at our Te Puna Creative Hub, recording the pod. I wanted to get both of you guys on the show. We've all connected reasonably recently, and have started to do some business together. But it was actually us going to dinner the other night as a group and hanging out. And I just went home to my partner, Steph, and I was like, man, I loved hanging out with those guys. Like, I just loved the conversation. Like, we had booming laughter, lots of great Chinese food.
Hot pot.
Yeah, hot pot. But I was inspired by both of you guys and your kind of come up stories, I guess, and also just your ambition and hustle, which are things that resonate with me. So I wanted to get you here. But if you could, guys, before we get into the yarns too much, if you could just introduce yourself and just tell me a little bit about what you're doing for work now. And we'll get into some more interesting stuff of, you know, your own origin stories and stuff like that. But if we start there, that'll get us rolling.
Sick.
You go first, mate?
No, please. The honour is all yours.
Look, I founded and still is or am a managing partner of MTM Group.
This is Jonathan Chen, by the way.
Sorry,
Jonathan
Chen. Jonathan
here he
Chen.
is.
Sorry.
Also known as
podcaster, also known as
JC.
JC. So I founded MTM Group, which sort of, in short, it's an investment house that combines three family offices, investing in a spectrum of different type of projects, which we add value to. So our footprints across property and property development, operating businesses and entertainment, film now obviously as well, the electricity sector. So a really wide spectrum of investments across those things, and we, in terms of what I do on a day-to-day, I sort of go across those number of businesses or projects, as we call them, and just making sure that we're adding value, not just the money side of things, to it all and driving it forward.
Rock and roll, brother.
Beauty, yeah. So Ahmed here. Kind of similar to Jono, where I dabble into a bunch of different stuff. Businesses across entertainment, a little bit of hospitality. Not property yet, but Jono's going to help me out with that soon, aren't you, Jono?
Sure.
So started 15 odd years ago. Good buddy of mine, Neil, Neil, getting into sort of the studio business, distribution, marketing, things like that. Started an agency doing a lot of experiential, out of home, below the line, guerrilla marketing stuff. Had a lot of fun doing that. And that's currently my mahi day to day. That's what I do, run that agency and another little side business as well. But over the last sort of 10, 15 years, we built a few cinemas, got involved in a couple of fast food restaurant style QSR concepts, met this handsome young fella on one of the projects, met you through some connected friends, and that's what the day-to-day is always just like making networks, connections, finding business opportunities and getting amongst it.
Yeah, awesome, man. And I found it fascinating hearing from both of you guys as well about your come up, as I say. Where did you guys start out? How did you grow up? What was your upbringing like, JC?
Yeah. So obviously, I was born in Taiwan, moved to New Zealand when I was 10, and we moved to Hamilton, of all places.
Oh,
and I think, back then, I think you could count on two hands how many Asian families were actually in H-Town at that time. And I'm talking like not just Chinese, like Asian, right? So it was a really interesting sort of mindset coming into a town from a big city like Taipei, where I grew up, into a, well, it's not rural, it's a big city in New Zealand, but comparatively, you know, and where it is very clear that, you know, you are, I wouldn't say you're different, but you're definitely sort of the outsider. And then, but I sort of embraced that opportunity to learn a lot of sort of, you know, the different aspects of, you know, culture and life that's sort of very, very different to my hometown. And I think that actually led me to a lot of paths that I sort of followed. And in terms of, I guess, from there, I grew up, went to high school, did my university degree in the Waikato University. I was actually a mechanical engineer. I don't know if you knew that.
Didn't know that.
So I studied engineering, graduated that, and then I was working for a stainless steel manufacturing business, which, you know, I was the mechanical engineer / project manager sort of type role. Kind of got bored of that because because it was, you know, it's the same. It's quite repetitive, you know, like we were designing pressure vessels and all that sort of stuff. And then, you know, I saw an advertisement from a law firm advertising for engineers, funnily enough. So I called them out of curiosity more than anything at the time. It was more like, well, you're a law firm and a pretty big one at that. What do you guys want to do with engineers? And what turned out that they were recruiting for technically trained people to train as a patent attorney.
Right.
Because it was IP laws, patent attorneys, trademarks, and, you know, all that sort of stuff. And I asked the founder, you know, why that is. And so the answer that came back was, well, it's easier to teach an engineer law than to teach a lawyer engineering.
Right.
So they sort of said, we'll pay for your sort of education through law,
Right.
you know, with your engineering background and get you registered and da-da-da-da. So I spent probably 10 years there. I became a registered patent attorney. And I was very fortunate in that, you know, the founder there, him and I got on really well. And he believed in me and gave me a division to run, and because at the time it was roughly at the same time that New Zealand signed the FTA with China,
Right.
And there was a lot more business going backwards and forwards, and I speak fluent Mandarin, I know the culture, know how, you know, my family's always done business in Asia, so I kind of understood a lot of the nuances, so I was helping a lot of New Zealand companies get to China and vice versa, and it started off as a pure legal sort of consultancy. But then very quickly what I was finding myself doing is giving them pretty deep commercial strategic advice around, you know, like the thing with IP is you have to get to the crux of the business to really figure out what you're actually protecting.
Yes.
Otherwise you're kind of throwing a lot of money at things that doesn't make any sense. So, which meant that I was trying to sort of get to the crux of what the point of difference is for each business.
Great.
And then figure out a strategy around that and how to protect it or not protect it. Sometimes it's a strategy, but this is maybe the leverage point that you use, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, I was finding myself getting more and more involved on that side of it, and it interested me. And and so that's how I sort of got into more investments, because it started getting into M&A, doing projects that way. And that's how I sort of crossed over into investments and property development and things like that, because funny story was one of the sort of mutual friends of one of my clients that I was quite successful with from an IP perspective happened to be a big property developer down in Queenstown. And, you know, he sort of approached me and said, look, heard you were successful in this, could we sort of get a bit of help? And so I did jump. Well, first of all, I said, I think you got the wrong guy. I've never done property development before. Like, you know, I'm a patent attorney. not sure if you got the right number. Yeah. But what he showed me was, you know, his project's a big land development project, which is sort of building a new precinct for the region, really. So you have to figure out how every part works with the other. So there's resi, there is hotels, there is tourism, there is hospitals and public sector, so all, and community of course. So you had to like sort of make it all fit. So it was very much strategic, M&A, all that sort of stuff. So that's how I sort of crossed over.
And did you feel like was that the stuff that sparked for you most as well?
100%.
Was it chasing what you loved?
Yeah, yeah.
So you started out doing engineering, you went, this isn't it. That sort of, it's not a direct linear path, right?
Correct.
Like then you stepped into legal and then started going that could be my superpower. This could be actually, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
How about you, Ahmed? What was your upbringing like? Where do you come from? And
Similar story, but also very different. So moved here in '95 from Iraq. I was only 5 years old. East Auckland, east side. Sorry, bro.
West is best, baby. Everywhere. Apart from in the NBA, hopefully. No.
So grew up in Auckland. Met my beautiful wife in high school at 16. We just celebrated our 21-year anniversary last week. So
congratulations.
Still
man.
figuring it out, seeing if we're right for each other, keeping my options open. Grew up in Auckland, met a bunch of good people, was trying to figure out what to do. I got a computer science degree and a commerce degree, and I was like, should I be a coder? Should I? And I was like, I'm too pretty to be behind a computer just doing this. So early on in the piece, I think I was in my young 20s, was when my buddy Neil, who we know, was like, hey, let's do some cool shit together. I was like, oh, yeah, what we could do. He was working at the studio at the time.
What sort of studio?
20th Century Fox.
Yeah.
He was
he was doing...
He was the sales and marketing manager.
Doing film distribution?
Yeah, film distribution. So we would get the studio would obviously have their global release, but they need a local New Zealand agency to actually distribute it, communicate with the cinemas, put a marketing plan together, what we're going to do above the line, below the line. And we were struggling at that time. This is like early 2000 and, 2010, 2013, something around then. We just couldn't find the right agency who understood film marketing well in Aotearoa, and just really, I know it's still big studio marketing, but they just felt like, it's a big studio, they should have millions of dollars to spend on marketing, but we didn't have those kind of budgets in New Zealand.
Sure.
So Neil was like, hey, why don't you start an agency, because I'm struggling to find someone who can actually just deliver. And I had no idea what marketing agencies did. We were trying to do experiential marketing before experiential marketing was a thing.
Even a term.
Yeah,
exactly.
So he would come up with these outlandish ideas, and I would figure out how to pull them off. Honestly, and so we started doing that, and then because we were working with a big studio, other big corporate brands were like, oh, could you do some of our work? So I started working with retail outlets like Westfields, and started working with other big name brands, consumer electronics like LG and things like that.
And so what would you actually do for people who don't know, so what does that agency roll out? So
the company's called Luminary. So what we do is we generally get a brief from a brand that wants to do something that's a bit different, unique, bespoke. And they'll send us a brief and say, we've got this much money to work with. We've kind of got this idea or a concept or just like a stem of something. We just don't know how to deliver it. So we plug in through a whole bunch of networks, resources, creative design, fabrication in-house, and make these big sets. Yeah. So I was just down in the Waikato this morning. Mm-hmm. We're doing a big field days exhibit for GWM, the Chinese car brand. Yeah. They sponsor the Warriors, right? And so what we're doing, when is this going to air? I don't know if this is
all good.
So next month we've done a partnership. We've done a partnership with so GWM sponsor the Warriors, and we've come up with this concept of wah selling cars. So imagine if the Warriors retired and bought a car dealership and they chose GWM as their car. So we're building a dealership in a paddock in Hamilton, and then building a mini Go Media stadium with a full rugby post, grandstand, bleachers, jumbotron in the stadium during field days. Cool, so man. They come to us, they say, how do you do this shit? And we go, we just find ways. There's always a way. Yeah. So that was like 10 years ago. I started that, and we kind of kept building it, still running, touch wood, going well. But we deviated throughout, like Neil's doing the studio stuff and I was doing the marketing agency stuff. And we really wanted to redefine what theatrical exhibition was, cinema here. We felt like that there was even though a lot of people felt like the cinemas were dying, we just didn't feel that theatrical was dying, but it just needed to be reimagined, a more premium experience, affordable experience, all that jazz. So we set out on a journey to build these cinemas. So I met this, again, handsome
Which
young
cinemas
fella.
are these?
Silky Otter Cinemas.
Yeah.
So we've got 8 around the country now. North Island, South Island.
And what makes those special?
It's just like our whole thing was we wanted a reason to leave the house and get out and watch these beautiful films on the big screen. We wanted it to be affordable for the regular consumer, but still feel like it was a unique experience. So for us, it's every seat is a good seat, nice leather recliner, food can be delivered to your seat, glass of wine, popcorn. It's all like, I want a night out of entertainment. I could get it at home, but I just feel different when I go to these cinemas because it's a nice experience. It didn't cost a fortune to do a night out with the family, and we believe in films and film, local indie films to big studio productions. Stories need to be told, and people want to get out of the house to see them. You just got to put on a good show, right? That one big brief that we used to tell staff all the time is like, there's thousands of hours, hundreds of millions of dollars that go behind a film being made. And all of that can be ruined if you got a snotty-nosed attitude customer service member with stale popcorn, an unclean seat, and bad lighting in the cinema. All that creativity, all the money spent on making this piece of art gets ruined for the end user. So we're the bastions of making sure that we deliver the best format of watching theatrical films, and that's what we wanted to set out to do. So that was 7 years ago now. Well, when did we start?
Yeah, 7 years ago.
Yeah, 2019 is when we opened the first one.
Yeah. It's awesome, man. Well, what I pick up from both of you guys is and from hanging out with you is the passion in what you do. And I think like this podcast, really, I think a big part of our audience is young creatives and young entrepreneurs who are aspirational and trying to get started, and like, I'm interested in your upbringing. Like, bro, I heard a bit of a story from one of your mentors, Ab, about, your sort of entry into business and your family when they first arrived here in New Zealand. Would you be comfortable sharing about that, bro?
For sure. Like Jono said, it's like different when you're a immigrant coming to a different land, and we were a little bit different. This is, again, in the 90s. Things are way chiller now, at least here anyway. But when we were growing up, so for me, I got these degrees from Auckland University, was trying to figure out what to do in life, and got a corporate job for a year, enjoyed it, met some nice people, but just it wasn't for me. And Ab, who's the guy that introduced us, was my brother's boss. He was mentoring him at the time, and I was like, this guy seems like a really nice guy. And I went and spoke to him one day, and I was like, I just don't know what I want to do because I've got this corporate job and I've got this degree and I want to start this other thing, but it's this like imposter syndrome or anxiety, self-doubt. I don't know, all these words. Like, this guy's a mechanical engineer stepping into a law firm. You just kind of go, can I do this? And the people who have done it, like Ab, are like, what have you got to worry about? Just give it a go. What's the worst thing that can happen? And then you just find yourself trying, and then you figure it out along the way, and you go, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was mentally. Now let me just take on the next challenge, and then I do that again. And then before you know it, you're doing all these various different projects. But even up until today, I don't know how this guy feels, but I'm like, I still don't even really feel like I can do it. But I wake up every day and I go do whatever I'm going to do, and it works. And then I just do it again tomorrow, but it still feels weird.
Well, yeah. I think, people say if you don't feel like you're being challenged, it's time to move on, right? Like, and I think that's probably that mentality. If you woke up one day and you sort of go on, you know what, like, I figured out everything there is to figure out here. Sure, the money's good, sure, whatever. Then maybe it's time for you to go, well, can I expand the business? Can I actually look at something else? Or that's sort of my mentality anyway. I don't know, instead of sort of being anxious about sort of getting into the unknown, I'm more anxious about staying still. Yeah, that was always been my mentality. It sounds like very similar to yours.
Has that been like that since you were a kid in the Tron? Like, where do you think that comes from? Because you're a driven dude and very ambitious, and like, what you bite off is pretty massive, with some of these projects. And the same with you, bro. Like, you guys are both juggling multiple businesses. Yep. Some of them are massive challenges. Like, where does that come from? What do you think drives you?
I guess there is a little bit in terms of the upbringing and that, growing up, and it's probably the competitive nature anyway. I'm quite a competitive person. I'm the most competitive one out of the 3 siblings that I've got. There's a little bit of that, and then there's a little bit of sort of, that when I was young, you couldn't just be ordinary. Like, you would not be seen if you were just ordinary. You always had to, like, whether if it's sports, you always had to be the best player for someone to give you a sniff into the reps. And I was always a short ass, so, playing basketball, I always had to go make sure I go into the paint and, score 3 times in a row on the biggest guy to go, I can do this consistently. It's that type of mentality, I guess.
And as you say, like, potentially as well as, growing up in Hamilton as a minority at that time.
Yeah.
Like, what about your folks? Like, was there pressure for you to succeed as well, or was that mellow?
Funnily enough, my folks, as far as Asian parents go, are pretty chill to
lucky,
me.
Bro.
I guess we grow up with a certain expectation, but I think they knew that, given how competitive I was even as a young kid and how sort of the way I'm geared, they always just figured that I'd figure it out. Whereas they probably put more pressure on my siblings. To be honest.
Says the engineer, lawyer, property developer. You just need to be a doctor, bro. And I think
but for me, it's always, I've never needed someone to sort of push me to go harder.
Felt more innate.
Correct. It's always just sort of, I don't know why. I don't know.
What about you, bro?
No, so I've got the Arab parents that were like, if you're not a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, you're a piece of shit. So, like, all the stuff that I've built, all these things that I've done, they're like, so?
It means nothing.
That's not a real profession. What are you up to? I was like, Mum, I got a commerce degree and a science degree. They're like, that's just a piece of paper. Well, you're not a doctor.
You're playing games all day.
I think I told you guys, but my upbringing, my dad was a car wrecker, like an auto dismantler. Then my stepfather was a car wrecker, auto dismantler. My big brother was a car wrecker, auto dismantler. And look what I turned out to be.
Like, what are you doing?
Love it.
So my stuff didn't quite match up with the upbringing either on the come up.
No, kind of what he said, like, super competitive. I hate no. Like, that's the word that is just. Shout out to Matt Garelli. He's a good friend of mine. He was the GM of a big business one day, and I was dealing with him, and I went up to him because we were trying to get something across the line, and he said, no, what can't happen? And I was like, it can happen. And he's like, no. So I got in my car, drove to his office, walked into his office, and he's like, before you say anything, go to the printer. I was like, okay. So I went to the printer and I grabbed the piece of paper that he printed, and it was the definition or dictionary description of the word no. And I was like, Matt, my job, we were trying to take over the venue and do a whole big sponsorship branding exercise and blah, blah. And he's like, it just can't fucking happen. It's impossible. I can't remember what movie he was releasing, but so I said to him, Matt, my job is to turn your no into a maybe and then eventually a yes. Like, that's just, I hate no. I'm super competitive, hustler, challenge. Like, it's just the more you throw at me, the more I'm like, sweet. I get anxious when nothing is happening because I'm like, fuck, I'm not moving. And like, am I failing? And is this working? And what? But the moment that someone says, you can't fucking build a show.
Or maybe clinically we're just ADHD.
I think that's the.
But do you think for you, like, how did your upbringing shape that, do you think?
It's hard, bro, because, like, I have older siblings that are also very successful, and one lives overseas, one lives here with me, like, down the road from us. And I'm quite different from them in the sense where just naturally when I was young, I was just always driven. Maybe I was the youngest in the family and I got spoiled. I can't actually pinpoint the reason why, to be honest. But for me, like I said, my parents were a little bit, not disappointed in me. I'm exaggerating here, but they had this like picture perfect thing where it's like, go study law, go study medicine, or be an engineer. And it wasn't right for me. I never felt excited by it, motivated by it, driven by it, and I just always found the next thing, and they eventually just let me to my own devices. And they're like, great, you've met a girl that you love, and you've got kids, and you've got a business that you pay your bills with, and life's okay, you know? So they're very proud of me, and I don't necessarily know if I can pinpoint an exact time or challenge or situation or circumstance,
that's all good, bro.
Other than the hustle. Like it was always just wake up, get shit done, move on. Next day, rinse and repeat. Yeah, that's it.
Guys, I'm interested to talk to you about like the creative business, because both of you straddle different sectors. and but both are sort of like screen industry involved or adjacent or whatever you want to say. But what have you observed, like JC, for you recently becoming an investor in a film, a single film production, but then also having a stake and involvement in the exhibition, so the theatrical cinema side. And then for you, bro, being involved on distribution, then exhibition as well, but also moving in other lanes. Like, what do you observe that's unique to the screen industry? And like for people who are watching, like a lot of our audience are filmmakers, the producers, the actors, like what do we do well in the screen sector? And then what do you think we could get better at? Because I know you, from the dinner the other night, you guys have views on this as well.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Loaded question though, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
but just be frank.
Century old industry.
Yeah.
I'll start with the negatives and then maybe we'll move on to the positives. The negatives is like we're a century-old industry, but it feels like we innovate at such a slow pace. It's like the world is moving on. How do we utilize new technology, bring in fresh new talent, think of different ways of doing the same thing that we've been doing forever? I'm talking about cinema, theatrical, exhibition. I don't do the film production as much as you do, but at least from a distribution perspective, some of the studios, man, they're just literally doing the same shit that they were doing 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do it now. So don't get me wrong, we do innovate and we eventually get there and the industry continues to move on. Cinema, I was at a CinemaCon years back and I remember John Fithian was the head of NATO and he stood up, did a beautiful presentation and he's like, cinema is dead. And then he clicked to the next slide and he's like, cinema has been dying for the last 70 years. It died when television was invented. It died when VHS was invented. It died when DVD, when Netflix, when COVID. And guess what? Cinema's still kicking. It's still going. So we get there eventually, but just the rate of innovation and the rate of adoption of AI technologies, of different commercial strategies. Like this guy looked at some of our business practices from a cinema perspective, like, why the hell are we still doing it this way? Like, because he came from a
Fresh
out of the industry perspective.
Exactly.
And he's like, hang on, tweak these levers and put this stuff in. All of a sudden, things change pretty dramatically. And you're like, oh, yeah, why didn't I think of that? So that's the negative. The positive is we're just resilient. Like we keep going against all odds. You make a film, it flops, it's horrible. Nobody goes to see it. No studio wants to pick it up, blah, blah. And then you go crazy enough to make another one. Yeah. Like most people just give up and they go get a day job at McDonald's.
To be in this business, we all have to be hooked on the same thing that I think all of us are. And this is like, I think from like a developer kind of perspective, like with property, I think, and a lot of like, you know, founders, startup people, we have to have a healthy relationship with risk. Yeah. But film has got to be up there with one of the riskiest. And, you know, when I was going to JC to talk about investment in film, and I was just full disclosure, you know, because it's like it is one of the riskiest sectors out there, you know, and even exhibition is a lot lower risk profile than production. We're right at the pointy end of it, you know. But then for me, you know, I've recently dabbled, as I've shared with you guys, in the property development space and have learned some pretty like sharp lessons in that space. But one of the really interesting things I found was actually the similarities between these different sectors. And I was interested in your take on this, JC, and maybe we can get back to your take on like the screen side in a moment.
Yeah.
But if you could, like, in a nutshell, if you could explain to the listeners and to us, like, how is a property development put together in terms of structure? Like just very high level, because what I wanted to do was get you to do that and then I'll respond to you on the indie film side because I feel like there's a lot of similarities. So if you're starting out on a development project, what do you do?
Well, you have to first of all start with a vision for it, right? Like you got to set your vision, then you've got to set about, okay, in order to achieve that vision, what are the things, 5 or 6 things that needs to happen for you? And it might be the market, it might be financial feasibility, who your equity or debt sort of funders. How do you actually make that work? Then you figure out what is the product that you have to design in order for it to the offtake side of it, right? Yeah. And you know, you always start off with their vision first, because
Yep.
the vision has to be, this is your game plan,
Sure.
right? And the game plan, once that's sort of set, and my thing with the way I do it is you got to be able to adapt based on, while the vision doesn't change, but the way that you achieve the vision may change, like
Sure.
depending on what sort of funders that you have available. What's the market doing? You know, like is it are we better off looking at a sell down model, or is it a long term hold model? If it's a
Sure.
long term hold model, how do we actually design it in a way that
sure.
we would be happy to hold it long term? And so, but those things are the variables that doesn't change your vision for what you're trying to build and what you're trying to achieve.
Sure.
So, and so in terms of, in order to do that, there is about, like I say, those 5 or 6 things that you're in the middle juggling of.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the similarities are with the
Yeah,
filmmaking
well,
side
that's
of
right.
things.
Like on the film side, you know, so there'll be an idea, which then evolves into being a script, and then you're developing the script, but you're testing the script on the market,
Correct.
seeing if there's an audience for
Yep.
that. That's no difference to you going, are there buyers for, like, let's say
Correct.
it's a townhouse development? Is this in a suitable location? You know, we're going, can we bring cast to this that will then make it attractive enough? Like, is it shiny enough? Is there margin? Like, because is the idea too expensive? Like the creative idea for a script for us to even finance, even though it would be freaking cool and it looks great.
Exactly.
Like on a poster,
Yeah.
can we really finance and produce that? I think those are very similar, like that due diligence that you're talking about of like testing the vision against the market is what we are doing in film at every juncture, right?
Correct.
But let's say your development, this theoretical development that we're talking about, gets past the R&D phase.
Yep.
And it makes sense. And what is the next step? Like, you know, let's say even go as far as to go, there's a site. What do you do then to get what we would call in films green light on your project?
Yeah. So that's a really interesting one, right? So remembering sort of the notion of you being in the middle, that you're sort of trying to drag the 4 or 5 things together, you kind of have to bring one aspect closer, and you have to lock one in, or you know, conditionally lock one in. So, for example, get a conditional contract on the land, so you've actually got the option on it. And then, you know, if you were smart, well, not if you're smart. Every developer wants to do this. It's just whether if the landowner would do the deal or not. Is you conditionally put your foot on the land.
Yep.
Then you go and convince, like, you know, your funders to go, I think this is the business strategy. This is the feasibility. Do you buy into that? And then they'll go, yeah, we're happy to come in as equity. Then you got to talk to your financiers, bank, you know, lenders, whoever, to go, we think there's a 60 or 70% debt that we can sort of achieve out of this. So and then basically what you do is you get them, and they will never do a straight out contract with you. It's always conditional. Oh, if you get the land, then yes, this will happen. So what you end up with before you greenlight it is you have a whole bunch of conditional term sheets.
So
from a whole
maybes.
bunch of people.
Yeah, you've got a whole lot of
no,
maybes.
a little bit more than a maybe is that they will say, if you pull this off, then I'll come in. And then there'll be a bunch of, if you pull this off, then I'll come in. And then you've got, like, for example, you might have a tenant that's going, yeah, if you can pull all of that off, and I'll pay this rent for it.
Yep.
So you've got all these things, which is those 5 or 6 things that you're trying to, and you know that you already got. But what you'll probably find is that this you know, your tenant is saying, yep, if you can get the land for this price, and you can get equity, well, if you can get bank finance or the cost to build, to stack, and then you got your contractors too. You got your sort of actual physical people that are doing the doer. So again, a lot of it is conditional on you actually being able to build for a certain price, or lock in a contract for a certain price. So it's these sort of 4 or 5 balls that you end up juggling, and then it gets to a certain point where you can present it in a full comprehensive business case where people go, okay, you've got enough people that says conditionally these are all things that we're happy to do. Okay,
Sign it off.
We're green light, and then that's when you set up your SPV and
Yeah. And that is so similar to film, you know. So at the script stage, we're prospecting, you know, and it's just an idea that often we'll develop in-house, we'll fund that development. We're taking a gamble on that. And then we will go out, and that next phase is in screen what we call packaging. So we bring in a director. We might try and attach a piece of cast. And often those people are going, have you got the money? Because we don't want to attach to something that's not real. So then we have to have our financiers that are our relationships that are conditionally attached to the project to make it feel real. To attract cast, attract the pieces. Meanwhile, in the background, we're running a budget and a schedule to do feasibility to make sure that the money we're asking for is going to be enough to fulfill the project. So it is very, very similar. And the other piece that I thought was super fascinating when we started talking, when I started dabbling in property development, is this model of getting financing against pre-sales. So, if you do have a property development, in lots of cases, you might need to sell a certain amount of units to unlock the lending on the remainder. And that's exactly what we do in film. So the old school indie film model, which is still the case right now, is we divide the globe into territories and we pre-sell each of those territories, or we sell when it's completed to distributors around the world. Now, in order to unlock our lending against the remaining value of the film, so the film, in aggregate, the value of the film is generated by the estimate of industry experts, valuations, which can be
dubious
horse shit.
That's a good word.
But that is still all that we have in this model. Of course, there's a lot more data now in these times. But basically, we will take our prospect, our package of cast, our script out to sales agents and distributors, and a value will be put on this film before even a frame is shot. And then to back up that value, we need to pre-sell enough units, or in our case, territories around the world that are true to the estimates to then unlock lending, which becomes the vast majority of our funding to greenlight the project. So it is so similar. And if we move too quick or we can't get the value of those estimates early, we will devalue the project. And this is something that happens in property too, right?
100%. And then you'll start to go back and have a look at, are the typologies right? Is the marketing right, and all that sort of stuff. And also, it's a good risk appetite tester for the developer. It's a really good sign to tell you that, hey, if there is some traditional sort of lending models that deem it too risky because the pre-sales weren't there or the prices weren't quite there with the pre-sales, then it's probably a good idea for you to go, let's just reassess what this means.
That's absolutely right. I guess where it differs is the execution dependent is such a term of our industry. So in film, you can have a script, you can pitch the idea verbally, you can use AI to pre-visit or whatever, but the final film is so execution dependent. If it's a comedy, do people laugh in the cinema? If it's a horror, do people, whereas at least all going well, as long as you complete the property to the plans, the developer in that world will get what they were promised. Ours has so much more margin for risk.
100%. I mean, there's some shoddy stuff out there too. But you're right. It's end of the day, it's bricks and mortar, right? So you are physically building the building, and there is building codes and laws that protect you against a certain level of quality, which end of the day, that's what it is, right?
I think timing is also a massive similarity and discrepancy of what works and what doesn't for both industries, because you guys talk about the jigsaw puzzle and stacking and selling pre-sales and blah, blah, as if it's like that. But these things take years to get across the line and a lot of blood, sweat and tears. And what I've seen happen more often than not in both some of the property deals and the film deals is what you thought was a good idea at that time. You may have a comedy because comedy is just box office
right now.
Yeah, every comedy is just hitting. And by the time you finished your feature, it's all horror. And your comedy is just lost. And same with property development, right? Everybody wants to buy a 3-story duplex. And this is where,
if you're chasing the market, you're going to be a step behind.
100%.
It has to have more integrity than that. It has to have what I really took from our dinner the other night from this guy, and he's too humble to talk about himself too much, but like from other people talking about him, was also just like making sure that there is margin in anything that you do jump on. That like, you know, even with this film that I'm working on now, I'm really mindful of if the market changes, can I still get my investors out?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to have the finance plan so stacked that like, it has to be like a tier one, like blue sky smash for my investors to at least recoup.
Yeah.
And, you know, JC, it sounds like, you know, even though you have an appetite for risk, you also have a conservatism that goes with that. And can you talk to that?
We do. I have a conservatism on things that we can control. So what are the things that you can't control? Exactly to Ahmed's point, timing, market, those things that you can't control. What are the things you can control? Okay, what do you spend on your project? What's your cost, right? You know, if the market took a turn, you know, what does that mean for us? And my final test before going go or no go is if we couldn't move a thing, if we couldn't move one unit out of this development, are we capable of and are happy to hold this until it turns? That's always my final test. And I always run that past my investors with me, because it's not just my money. I respect that. And I said, look, I've taken the current market price with a discount. I've added contingency to my cost, but I think I can deliver for under what I've got. But I've got a contingency there, so there's a couple of layers here of risk that I've factored in, and that's something I can control in the feasibility, right? And some people might say that's too conservative, but that's okay.
Well, it's serving you okay at the moment, brother. And I think like for a lot of entrepreneurs, actually that calm, steady hand's what's missing. And particularly in my game, like in film, you know, it's like, that's why you guys, we talked about this too. That's why you guys are much more successful business people than I am. You know, I've achieved some things in the creative space that I'm really proud of. But like often in the past, my passion and my creative sort of impulses overridden like that more steady, that more conservative part. I need people around me to do that, is what I've learned, because it's like my superpower in a way is that passion. It's that fire. It's like go out and get it. It's the hustler. It's the guy who's like can't sleep at night thinking about the creative idea that takes over my everything, you know. And so what I've learned is when that can be harnessed in a business space, that's a very valuable thing. And then I still feel like I have a certain amount of business nous to offer, but it's probably not on my own projects because I'm too close to them.
Yeah, it's this thing, blind optimism. It happens not just in the creative industry, although it's rampant in the creative industry.
More so, you would say?
Oh,
like,
100%.
More so.
Yeah, I've seen so many people just walk into money because they believe that they could, but it's I wouldn't call it a fluke, but a lot of people think that by believing in it and blue sky scenario, they'll just manifest it. That's not real. Like, it does happen, but the reality for me is what Jono was saying. If you go into projects like you did with the recent film with an expectation that at a bad day scenario everybody is kept, that's good. Let's go. Yeah. A lot of projects that I've seen businesses or films to be greenlit rely on the blue sky, rely on if everything goes well, if the market conditions stay exactly the same, and if the consumer demand doesn't change, and inflation doesn't change, and the consumer appetite for comedy or horror or whatever doesn't change, then I'll make $1 million or millions of dollars. But then a year later, inflation's happened, consumers have shifted into a different appetite, cost of development or cast or whatever has increased, and you're like, fuck, I just lost $1 million. I didn't even factor the scenario in my feasibility.
And suddenly now as well, the people who you're doing business with don't have an appetite for return business, you know. And this is where like, this is a small city, and like, this is like, you know, we all end up crossing paths again soon enough. And it's another thing I've definitely learned. And like with both of you guys, like you've both been super helpful on this current project. It's like, you know, I think the older you get and the more, not cynical, but like just a little bit more realistic. Like I really, as a young filmmaker, believed that in my bones that every film was going to be like the record breaker, you know, and that's what got me out of bed, you know. Whereas now it's like just a little bit more aware that you can create actually a freaking beautiful thing. And if the timing's not right, it just won't hit its full potential. So you got to safeguard for that. But, yeah, I wanted to ask you, like, you know, this pod, it's like, you know, it's brought to listeners by Auckland Council. It's like Te Puna Creative Hubs where we're recording now. Like, yeah, for you guys both coming from different cultures, like, what do you think is unique about doing business in New Zealand? What are Kiwis and Aucklanders like to do business with? What do you notice, like, doing business internationally as well? And like, how does it differ from like the way you guys were brought up, if at all?
Oh, I mean, it's been said way too many times, and unfortunately, there's still remnants of it here. It's just this tall poppy syndrome thing that still maintains is like everyone's always so humble about their achievements and doesn't want to brag about it, or not brag about it, but like acknowledge it, because someone's always there to shoot you down. Like, oh, cool, like you fucking did this property development. You think you're the man now because you drive a nice car. Like, okay, yeah, he's successful. Like, let's celebrate and let's boost him up, because if we've got a network of really successful people, which we do, but if they're all boosting each other up, then we become more successful. That's why our connection.
Yeah, shout out to Abs from Acuity as well, who like has played an instrumental role bringing us together. And bro, the story I was actually talking about with him was when he met your mum.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at the supermarket. And bro, I was retelling that story recently, bro. No shit, bro. I broke down in tears because it just touched me so much. Like, I was just like, yeah. So shouts to Ab. Like,
so we need more people like in this business community. For the young guys coming up, wanting to start their own thing, blah, blah, we need more Abs of the world that fostering community to celebrate success and put them on stages and shout out from the rooftops. This guy cracked it. He did really well. Let's help him. Let's bring the next guy or girl up to do the same. But I've always felt like growing up here, doing business and getting in this mahi, it's always been a little bit like jealousy, envy, tall pot. I don't know what, like it's the words, but
well, I love that vibe. You just roll with that swag, bro. Like you lead with your chest, and I love that about you, you know? And that's what I found inspiring about spending this night together as men, you know? And like, we weren't all like, you know, getting on the piss and like, you know, it was just like nice, like sharing over a feed and like all sharing about what our dreams and aspirations are. But like, there's a degree there of us all wanting to help each other out if we get the opportunity to. And yeah, I just left really like inspired by that and inspired to take that to my own community in the screen space. Because it's such a hard game that I'm in that often it can end up really narrow and just like driven to try and get things done. But even just that camaraderie to just share some stories amongst ourselves and I really appreciate it, and to lift each other up exactly as you're saying.
Yeah. But New Zealand, it's a really interesting one in that, because we obviously have a little bit, and you have too with the film, and you have too before with the distribution, but it's just, you know, if you have some access to that international business world, you very quickly come to the conclusion that New Zealand is a village, right? Yeah. Like everybody knows everybody. Or if you didn't, you can ask 3 people, and within 3 people, they'll probably know. Yeah. You know, we just had one today, right?
3. Yeah. You mean 2?
Well, 2 maybe.
3's
all of them. But you know, like so my whole thing is you have to be consistent in who you are, because it's such a small. And you know, and that's what you should be as a human being anyway. But there are a lot of people in business that won't be consistent in terms of how they behave. You know, they might talk down to a supplier, but you know, and talk up to a client. You know, and then you go, well, Jesus, that's a totally different person that you just presented. And I get that there is different dynamics and things like that. But my thing has always been, you know, given that everybody knows everybody in here. You have to be consistent. You can't be a dick to anyone. You know, the no dickheads policy, which the All Blacks use, is very consistent with the business mentality
True.
in New Zealand too, I think.
True.
And that's the same for, sorry to interrupt, but that's the same for us as well, bro. Like on sets, and I think like a lot of the big international stars that come here, for example, to work in Auckland, love it because like they just get that exact sense. Like the village is too small to disrespect, you know.
Yeah. And it's cool because obviously now there is definitely a multicultural sort of aspect to that, which sort of brings a little bit more of that uniqueness of the village compared to the other parts of the world where basically, you know, it might be dominated by a certain culture or whatnot. So but that's the positive side of it. The negative side of it is exactly to your point, this sort of tall poppy syndrome where everybody knows who you are, and while you're on the run, great. As soon as you sort of, you know, make one bad mistake, let's go at him or her.
Yeah.
You know, and it starts to become a bit more of a sort of, you know, it snowballs quite negatively quite quickly too.
Yeah, and it's a more insular competitiveness. Like I'm highly competitive as well, bro. Like I really relate to that. Sometimes I wish I wasn't. Like,
Same
I
here.
am so it's just like epic. And I think like again, I love hearing that from you guys because I think that's innate in me too. Like there's a little bit of like background stuff. Like I always definitely utilize for me, like you guys both went to university. I left school in the 5th form, like before I got school C. And like, I've always liked having that as a bit of a chip on my shoulder driver, you know, that it's like, I like to be able to sit in every boardroom, like with international studios, with their lawyers and like go, let's do it. Like, let's go toe to toe. That's helped drive me, you know, and it's that kind of swagger and competitiveness. But exactly as you say, like in New Zealand, often that sort of attitude isn't really supported, you know, and it can create a more insular competitiveness. So it's like to their point, to be honest, man, where a lot of the time in my industry, I don't participate in like stuff within our game with my peers because I just don't want to get into that. And, you know, I'll help people on the come up, but like, I just don't want to get into being in competition with my direct peers, you know?
Yeah, because you feel like a dick here. It's like sometimes when you're talking about, oh, yeah, I was just in LA and I was meeting with such and such actor or director and had dinner. They're like, oh, do you think you're the man now just because you had dinner with...
Would they actually think that?
I
honestly,
think
just for you saying I came back from this?
They think you're flossing and flaunting and trying to be somebody. And you're like, no, literally, I just had a dinner with whoever it might be. And
yet when you talk to every international person, and like I've been on these cohorts with like New Zealand producers who go to the big top talent agencies in the US and stuff, and the big critique that we get back is like, you're way too humble.
So humble.
Like, how do you think you're really going to cut through the volume, the sheer volume of content that we're getting pitched every day?
But this is...
when you come in like,
so
you know...
this is legit the problem. This is what I'm trying to say is we hold ourselves back because we get talked shit about if you go forward. And that's what I'm trying to say is like, fuck it, just go forward. Like, brag about your success, be happy, celebrate other people's successes. Because when we're not trying to compare to the Americans or whatever, but when we're a bit more loud and brash and Hollywood, there's more opportunities that open up.
Well, thankfully, I think the current gen is much more like that.
True. Yeah, we're
like,
old farts now.
Yeah, like, you know, we're aging out of that. I don't think we can put the young prefix on our, like, you know, young entrepreneur, young businessman. We're all dads now. But I think, like, the young people that I see coming up have a different relationship to that, and I love that for them. And I feel like there's too much, like, you know, our gen and then older gens as well, like, I think criticize that the younger cats for, like, a different work ethic and like maybe they've got a different approach and relationship to the grind that we have and had. But I think they have other things over us. Like, you know, as I say, they just have less barriers between how, like, them and presenting themselves and their ideas with confidence. You know, the negative take on that is, like, they feel entitled. I hear a lot of people, like, you know, say that. But for me, what the positive of that is they don't have these inhibitions and barriers. And I think, like, that will bust them into new spaces.
Yeah.
But yeah, another thing we were talking about on that, like, and then we'll look to wrap it up. But like, business now, like, and that new generation, like, what are the challenges you guys are seeing that we're all facing with the climate? Like, what are the big hazards? And how are you guys evolving what you're doing in the face of that?
I mean, the elephant in the room is AI, right? Like, specifically for me, it is just a astronomical game changer into what we do across all the different facets of business.
100%. Same.
It's a scary world. It's an exciting world. It's a scary world. It's all the emotions combined in one. But what I was doing this time last year comparative to what I'm doing now is chalk and cheese because of AI enablement. And that's everything from mundane operating tasks through to creative concepting and fast tracking a process that once involved 17 different people now can just be done in a single night. Because we're getting older now, no more nightclubs and going out partying. I'm literally up at 2 a.m. jamming fucking Claude, trying to get it to do what I want it to do. And that's what gets me excited. But business today, such a rapid rate of innovation in the last 12 months, and I don't know where we're going to be 12 months from here. I think it's going to...
What does that do for you mentally, bro? Like, how do you safeguard that?
So, because we all come from this competitive nature and we have this kind of problem solving or figure it out mentality, a lot of our generation do. I think that it's just going to empower and enable us to be able to do more. I certainly find I'm way more productive. Like I said, I just drove from Hamilton here, and for the 1.5 hours I was driving.
Did you self-drive?
I wish.
Shane would have.
We're going to get there soon.
Shane actually self-drove to Hamilton the other day. Scared the shit out of me, but anyway.
But I had ChatGPT running and Claude running, voice memo, and I was just telling this, I need this, and by the time I get there and this. And it just, in that hour and a half, I swear I did 16 hours worth of work.
Hey,
I
the hustle of this man.
I swear.
Hey.
And it's just, if you set your mind, if you have that mentality where you want to drive forward, use these tools to empower you. It's like trying to do business back in the 90s without a computer and Excel. You'd be like, what are you doing? You can't do business.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's for me is use it for that. I don't think it's going to take away our creativity. I don't think it's going to take away our innovation and our business acumen.
But
and
are you
commerciality.
keeping an eye on, are you trying to shape for, we all said at that dinner the other night, none of us really know how fast the true paradigm shift is going to happen with AI. But are you thinking about that for, your business model in the 5 to 10 years, even though you don't have certainty?
Sure.
Yeah, 1,000%. I talked a lot. I'm going to let John take this, but my prediction, we'll come back and watch this podcast, 5 years, so 2030, by the end of 2030, radical change. Business is going to not look anything like it does today. And we're going to rewatch this podcast and we're like, oh, fuck, that dude was right. So I'm just going to leave it there. Radical change. Over to you, JT.
I'm with you, man.
So I agree. I mean, that is obviously the big change, and then obviously how that affects the political and the climate, as in the real climate change, given that it's very power hungry and energy hungry, and is our law and our sort of regulations even going to keep up with? The answer is no. These a lot of these laws, even IP law, I know it. The patent law in New Zealand is still it's a 1952, 53 sort of act. It's designed towards gadgets, physical gadgets, not in this sort of realm of technology that we're talking about, including creativity, IP law around copyrights, and there's already this raging debate about sort of if AI, it's a learned concept, but it's its own creator, but it's a learned concept. What does that mean from a copyright perspective? Because all that sort of stuff. Now, from my perspective, from a business perspective, how we're dealing with that is, yes, we have to adapt to the use of AI, but we're also looking at if that happens, and I think it will, I'm with you on that, what is the one thing that we could still try to invest in or get involved with, from an investment perspective and also from a business perspective, and that's why recently we've moved into energy in a big way. So a lot of our property development is land development, so there's a lot of infrastructure building, so we're focusing on energy, harnessing as much as we can, not wasting land, you never waste land, but how do we actually sort of get some energy out of the rooftops that off the industrials that we'll build, or the commercials that we'll build, etc., etc. We've also recently picked up a electricity retailer to sort of try to go more vertically integrate, which we were just talking about before. To me, that's sort of how I mitigate, because I don't think I might get lucky and someone might come and pitch a AI startup to me, but I'm not banking on that. But what I'm banking on is what are the complementary uses that an AI, what will enable AI development, and and power and energy is 100% one. And so that's why we're moving into that in a big way. Just trying to sort of go, okay, like, we're not Silicon Valley. I'm not a software engineer. How do I actually support or have a business related to the industry that we can actually help? So, a wise person once told me, in a gold rush, it's not the people digging for gold that gets rich; it's the people selling the spades and the shovels.
Beautiful.
Damn straight.
Right. So to me, the electricity and the energy side of things is probably your shovels and your spades to the AI race. So we're kind of moving in that space now, and we've sort of made some strategic sort of investments that way, both at the generation at the retailing end. And so, watch the space. We'll hopefully make a bit of a... We'll be making a splash with Luminary.
Yep.
So we'll be...
That's awesome, man.
Going for it.
Yeah, I mean, from my side as well, like, fully agree with all your observations, and like it's definitely in our planning as well. So we just founded and announced our new post-production company called The Wing, which is attracting international co-productions to Aotearoa, where we've teamed up with a financing arm. So we're providing finance post-production with massively increased focus on machine learning and AI. So films that we would be working on anyway and attracting and putting through the pipeline, we're just pivoting our workflows to work with it now in the transition. But like, my view within the film space is that it still seems, all the modeling still seems quite a long way off, like real emotional nuance and like humanity. Like, we'll see, it's early days, like how long, you say 5 years, maybe that'll be it. If it is, bro, we'll just be going back to the theatre. I'll be dusting off my
I like this.
I'll be dusting off my acting shoes and treading the boards because AI can't do that. I went and saw the bro Beulah Kuale on stage the other night at the Q Theatre, and I was blown away by just the presence of like theatre again and touched by it. And I was like, I think these are the things that, like, as AI starts to take over, we all yearn for for human connection.
Yeah.
And I think even in like a massive AI production space in film, people are going to want the counterbalance to that. What is the punk to mainstream culture?
Exactly.
If AI culture is mainstream culture, what's the counterculture?
Yep.
And counterculture is my happy place,
Yeah. It's a good point you made on that, because I think, for every sort of... humans are funny like that. Like, for everything that, when it becomes the norm, people don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
When it was like an aspiration and it's kind of pitched to you as an aspiration, then everybody wants it.
Yeah.
But then if it becomes the norm, like at the moment, AI is still this new thing, and if it becomes the norm, like you say, and the counterculture is something different, then that will become that'll become the actual valuable
human
thing,
made, I should say.
I'm of the opinion of, I don't think if it becomes the norm. I think the case is when it becomes the norm, because it definitely will.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I hope that it is the counterculture is humanity again, and experiences is just like these things we cannot replicate with AI. Like, we could make a fake Tom, and we could make.
I think there's already a sort of
movement
resistance against AI as well. Like, even you just check out the comments on like socials, and it's like people are hating on it. Like 100%. When it feels like of course humans want authenticity. You know that from working with brands. That's like a big, you know that from doing business. What you're talking about, it's like, and it ain't there yet, you know. And so
I don't know if it's just because I'm old now that I'm seeing a lot more like this nostalgic
Yeah.
sort of thing being pushed. Like, remember back in the 80s or back in the 90s, this was blah, 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 blah. It's more colourful. And I'm seeing a lot of that. Like, I don't know where I see it, but I just sort of going around and seeing it a lot more. Maybe because I'm getting old.
Even from young people, man, that I
throwbacks, right?
talk
Yeah.
with. But like even with them, like the thing for them is like it is a romantic notion to have a time where you're not censoring everything you do because you could get caught
It's
on
not so
camera,
sterile anymore,
you know,
right?
and
Yeah.
it could be like posted and. So I think that nostalgic thing is totally true, man. And it does make me feel really grateful about the time we all grew up in
100%.
and what we've come up
You know,
in.
we're going to be the last generation that remember what life as a kid was like without smart devices. We're going to be the last ones.
Yeah.
That's it. If you think about it.
That's pretty trippy.
Right?
Yeah,
like
well,
we're the
'cause
only
we
ones,
grew
because
up-
we grew up with nothing.
We didn't
like
have
no
a
smart
computer in the
devices.
household when we grew up. There was no computer.
Yeah.
And then we kind of grew up in the era where we had a computer.
Yeah.
And then we all had smartphones.
Yeah.
And now we're all on streaming services and then AI.
Exactly.
So we went from arguably the Stone Age
Yeah.
and the future.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy.
like the next generation. When do smartphones become more normalized? Like late 90s, early 2000s?
Nah, bro. Like
Later,
I think like late
2005,
2000s.
Yeah. I remember in like '99 I had an Alcatel One Touch Easy, and that was cutting edge. So
Yeah. Alcatel, Ericsson,
The bricks.
Nokia.
Yeah.
Plain
Nokia
Snake.
3310 was mine thing.
Yo,
That was
guys,
indestructible.
thank you so much for today. Like, awesome to link with you guys. Thank you for being generous with your wisdom
Appreciate
and
it.
knowledge,
been
and
fun.
just enjoy our burgeoning friendship. And good luck with all your current ventures.
Thank you.
And shout
Thank
out
you.
to Tom. Thank you for inviting us and
Yeah.
all your projects and including us in your stuff, man.
Absolutely.
We're very excited to see this one come out. He just showed us a little hype reel and woo, sauce.
Nice.
Sharing
Nice.
the love coming at you, baby.
Absolutely. So when's our next hot pot?
We
I
got
reckon. Let's go. I'm hungry now, bro. I went for the running lean through the potty option, but I've got to say, not that you guys weren't 120% compelling, but I've had a certain type of curry running through my imagination.
Didn't you
for the
promise
last
us
hour.
some like
Yeah,
Malaysian,
we're gonna
Vietnamese?
hit, we're gonna hit the Malaysian
Out west.
joint.
Malaysian,
Yeah.
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 Love it. That's on the next on the hit list.
Shot, guys.